Hi, I'm Deanne Mazzochi, State Representative for Illinois House District 47, and I am an Elmhurst resident. We're here today to talk about the wonderful manufacturing opportunities that we have here in Illinois and what we can do to try to improve things and do better. So as we all know, Illinois has a rich history in commerce and in manufacturing going all the way back to the early 1800s. Because of its central location, access to skilled labor, major transportation hubs, our state truly does offer a solid base for manufacturing. Almost 10% of Illinois' labor force works in manufacturing. There are over 12,000 different manufacturers in the state, including some of the world's largest corporations. This includes pharmaceutical manufacturing, aerospace, food, autos, semiconductor, and medical equipment manufacturers. And although the pandemic has had some effect, according to a recent survey by the Federal Reserve Bank, most of our manufacturers are rebounding, and 70% of respondents said their facilities never had to shut down during the pandemic. So we also are here today to celebrate National Manufacturing Day. So because of that, we've invited several experts to our Made in Illinois Roundtable. The first is Donovan Griffith, the Director of Government Affairs for the Illinois Manufacturers Association, Jim Nelson, who is Vice President of Education and Workforce Policy at the Illinois Manufacturers Association. Ray Dugan is the Argo plant manufacturer for Ingredion Inc. And Danielle Kuglin-Sego is the manager of Project Higher Ed, an apprenticeship program at College of DuPage. And Project Higher Ed is very near and dear to my heart because it was one of the programs that I initiated and championed when I was chairman of the board at College of DuPage. So I want to say to everybody, again, thank you so much for your time here today and welcome. So Donovan, if we can start with you, tell us about your organization and talk about how manufacturing promotes businesses. The Illinois Manufacturing Association promotes businesses and helps employment in Illinois.
Absolutely, Representative. Thank you for having me here today to be part of this discussion. As you said, I'm Donovan Griffith. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the Illinois Manufacturers Association. I'm grateful to be part of this discussion with my colleague, Jim Nelson, a wonderful Illinois manufacturer like Ingredion, a great institution like the College of DuPage, and with you, Representative, who have really just been a champion for manufacturing and jobs in Illinois. You and I have had countless conversations in Springfield on different legislation in a way that it would impact jobs in the state, and you have always listened and been supportive and had creative thinking around keeping jobs and growing jobs. So thank you for all you do, first and foremost. But with introduction, real briefly, a little bit about the Illinois Manufacturers Association. We are the oldest and one of the largest manufacturing associations in the country. We are actually in our 126th year. We're actually 1 year older than the National Association Group, and we represent nearly 4,000 manufacturers in the state. One of our largest roles that the IMA plays is that we work, and actually my largest role too, of what I do here, is we work to ensure that laws and regulations in the state are conducive to supporting and growing manufacturing. And with that, we get involved in a lot of issues, a lot of macro issues such as tax policy, workers' compensation, environmental regulations, and more. But we also get involved in micro issues as well that might affect just one manufacturer in the state. And we do that because every employer in the state is important for the communities that surround them. And so we get involved in the larger issues and then the real small issues as well. And it's all because of the fact that manufacturing is critical to the entire state of Illinois. Now, Representative, you actually had a good introduction because you took some of the details I was going to provide right out of my mouth. But at the beginning of the year, there were roughly 592,000 manufacturing sector jobs in the state, which means, as you said, about 1 in 10 working age Illinoisans work directly in the manufacturing sector. And you can find a lot of these jobs right there in DuPage County. There are roughly 56,000 manufacturing jobs in DuPage County alone, which is second only to Cook County in the entire state. And these are good paying jobs too. The average income and benefits per manufacturing worker in the state of Illinois is just under $89,000 a year. So when you have almost 600,000 individuals earning this type of income, it not only provides a life for those individuals, but it's also a driving force for the state of Illinois. On manufacturing's impact on the state of Illinois, manufacturing contributes the single largest share of gross state product in Illinois. It's about 12%. And the fact is that 93% of all Illinois exports are manufactured goods and products. So it just goes to show the importance of manufacturing in Illinois. And in fact, just a fun fact I like to say, if you taking a loan Illinois' manufacturing economy would be the 63rd largest economy in the world when you put it up against all the country. So this is all to say that manufacturing matters in Illinois. And while manufacturing is important in the state, we do often see larger job growth in the surrounding states, and Illinois often lags behind. And after years and years of manufacturing job losses, we are now seeing slower growth in Illinois than others. And because of that, I'm often asked, what works for manufacturing in Illinois? What is a hindrance? And to that, I like to first focus on what is going for, what Illinois has going for it when it comes to supporting jobs and job creators. And I think you touched on some of these points as well, Representative, that there are some perks to doing business in Illinois. One, we are centrally located in the country and have an excellent transportation system, both by air and by ground, through our interstates, our railway, and world-class airports. And we also have many connections to different waterways. We also have a well-educated workforce with impressive state universities, and Jim's going to talk more about workforce in a little while, so I won't go much into that. I'll let Jim touch on that. We have over a dozen technology parks in the state. We have the world-class city of Chicago. We have 34 Fortune 500 companies based right here in the state. We have some of the cheapest energy in Illinois compared to a lot of other states. And this is actually something we're watching very closely as Governor Pritzker and the legislature discusses possibly changing the way the state does the way the state of Illinois handles energy. Right now, we have a very diverse portfolio, which allows us to have cheap energy. We hope it stays that way. So right now, that's a huge benefit as well. So there's a lot going for business in Illinois. However, there are some issues that hold back manufacturing. One of the main issues, and that's been discussed across the board, is Illinois' history of fiscal mismanagement, especially when it comes to budgets and pensions. When companies are looking to grow or relocate in Illinois, one of the most important things to them is reliability and predictability. And when Illinois' fiscal house is not in order, it's hard to predict what future taxes will look like, what incentives may be available. I use, for example, the Research and Development Tax Credit. We passed legislation last year that extends that credit, and I believe you support that, Representative, so thank you. But before that, the R&D tax credit turned off and on like 3 or 4 times in 10 years. And it was really not something that businesses could use. It was just unreliable. And that's what you have when you have the state that does not have its fiscal house in order. So that's really important to manufacturers. Another issue, especially probably in DuPage County, is property tax reform. We have not seen any real action done on property taxes in a long time. The state of Illinois created a property tax task force last year that had over 70 individuals on it. I don't know about you, but sometimes I think it's hard to get something done with just a handful of individuals, regardless of that many. And nothing really came out of that. And that was tied to the graduated income tax, which I'll talk about in this moment. But property taxes are something that the state really needs to tackle, and it's something that's important to industry. And then speaking of taxes, a lot of employers are watching what's going on in this November with the graduated income tax and what will happen and how it has its impacts on job creators and small businesses, many of whom run their taxes of their business through their personal income tax and will be impacted by that graduated income tax. Is something that the IMA is adamantly opposed to. It's often referred to actually as the job tax in the state. So it's something we're keeping a close eye on as well. And I know a lot of manufacturers across the state are. We need workers' compensation reform. As businesses in Illinois, we see some of the highest workers' compensation costs than anywhere else in the country. And there's been no real effort to address real reasons for these high costs like causation, and something needs to be done on workers' compensation. We need to address unemployment insurance as well. At the beginning of the year before COVID-19, Illinois had a healthy unemployment insurance trust fund that had about $2.5 billion in reserves. Now, according to the Department of Employment Security, in 2 or 3 years, there's going to be $8 to $14 billion in debt. So that's something that's going to have to be addressed as well. And then just in general, we need to cut back on the red tape and the over-regulating. There's a lot of that going on in the state, a lot of loops that a company has to go through to either receive a certain benefit or to even be able to grow into the space that they're in. And so a lot of the over-regulation really hinders growth. And then, as I mentioned, workforce is a positive for the state, but there's also more we can be doing. And I'll turn to Jim Nelson to talk about workforce development.
Thank you, Donovan, and good afternoon, everyone. Representative, thank you so much for sponsoring this and And on National Manufacturing Day of all days, it's a great opportunity to really talk about some challenges within the sector. As Donovan mentioned, acquisition of talent is a huge challenge for a number of companies. 10 years ago, if you had asked manufacturers what was the biggest challenge facing them, they would have told you healthcare costs, skyrocketing healthcare costs. Today, almost universally, when I talk to manufacturers, the number one challenge is sourcing talent that have the right knowledge and skills mix to work in today's manufacturing environment. As we all know, the baby boomers are still retiring. They'll continue to retire till at least 2027, if not a little bit longer than that. So that's making a lot of churn in the economy. In manufacturing alone, we need, on average, around 20,000 production workers and 5,000 engineers of all stripes each and every year. And that's going to continue at least through 2027, and I think it's going to last just a bit beyond that. So we've been working over the last 10 years with College of DuPage and a number of high schools and 39 other community colleges around the state to expand career and technical education opportunities and develop a pathway system that really can start at the high school level and then transition into the community college system. We've learned that high school career and technical education programs, by and large, are not sufficient to finish someone to be fully prepared to transition into the world of work. So we need that post-secondary education component to be very strong and pick up where the high schools left off to make that transition into higher level skills and knowledge. The world of work is changing, and manufacturing is going through its fourth industrial revolution. It's a lot of people will call it Industry 4.0 or digital manufacturing or what have you. And what that's going to do to existing programs is it's going to put more pressure because the requirements for knowledge and skills is going to change. Instead of looking at people who have algebra and geometry in the math sector, for instance, now we need people who understand statistics and quantitative analysis, because Industry 4.0 systems, digital systems, give us lots of data, lots of big data that we can work with to make sure that we're making products of the very highest quality. So along with more math, of course, comes more technical reading skills and understanding new terminology, new processes, new product lines and production processes. So all of these things is really requiring industry and the education system to really sit down and say, what are we doing today, and where do we have to get to make sure that we've got a pool of talent that's ready to go in the 21st century. The simplest definition of a skills gap is what is being taught versus what is actually needed on the production floor. And the difference between those two things keeps moving because technology keeps advancing. We can't simply sit still. So the competition for talent is increasing because right now, as we know, there's a little bit of a dip in student enrollments. So competition among all of the occupational sectors, all 17, is increasing. So in Illinois, we can look at opportunities for all students. We've come through the last 50 or 60 years with a philosophy that to be successful in life, you have to have a 4-year degree. Otherwise, nothing counts. Technology has stood that on its head. And not that college isn't a good thing. The goal is always to finish college. But how students get there and when they get there is now different for every individual student. So we need to build an education system that reflects those changes and builds upon opportunities that include work-based learning as well as classroom, and those work-based learning opportunities through paid internships with companies and registered apprenticeship. So how we do education, how we realign budgets. I'm not suggesting that we go out and grab a bunch of new money, because we all know in this business that money is finite. So we need to understand how can we restructure budgets at the secondary and post-secondary levels to make it more effective, that is going to produce the type of workforce that possesses the knowledge and skills that employers need today, and that they can build on for their workforce in 2 years, in 5 years, etc. The one group that we rarely talk about is opportunity youth. And that is a group of people who, very simply defined, are those between the ages of 16 and 24 who are both unenrolled and unemployed. That is a fairly sizable group in Illinois, as it is in other states, but nobody has really tapped how to really connect with that group and pull them back into the education and system and the world of work successfully. So that's a huge challenge that we need to work on with policymakers, with the community college system, and with the network of community-based organizations, because that's a source of potential talent that really is untapped at this point. I'm going to stop there and be happy to come back for any questions or discussion.
Yeah, that'd be great. And actually, so Donovan and Jim, since I have you both, both here, one of the things that, and I'm sure Danielle will jump in on this, that, you were talking about the skills gap and why don't we have, the workforce development in place. One of the things that I actually found is that parents are very resistant to the idea of, oh, what's your child going into? Oh, they're going into manufacturing. Oh, that doesn't seem to have with them the same cachet as they're going off to study, some other random, topic elsewhere. But when you really do look at, getting back to your point on the skills set that is needed, going into manufacturing today does not mean I am going to stand here and just push a button, over and over again for 8 hours, or I'm going to take this hammer and hit that nail for 8 hours. It truly is a much more complicated way of doing things. You've got computer aided design, you have incredible sophistication in terms of how the manufacturing itself is done. As you start getting into more just-in-time manufacturing and more customized manufacturing, you can't be stupid to run these types of plants and organizations. And maybe that might, I don't know if you want to comment a little bit on that, and then that might be the good intro into to Ray, so that he can kind of talk about the sophistication that, that his company does.
Well, and the other thing that comes into play here is that when we talk about manufacturing generally, to parents, to students, they all think about the person in the sleeveless undershirt throwing, coal into a blast furnace. And as you point out, that's not manufacturing today. It's clean, it's dynamic, it's changing each and every day. There's no 2 days alike. But the thing we also overlook are all of the front office functions in manufacturing. We need accountants, we need computer programmers, we need engineers, we need people who are experts in logistics and transportation to move raw material into the plant and then finished product from the plant. And all of these things are like a great dance that, when you look at the totality of manufacturing, all the different functions, from procurement of raw materials to packaging and moving things out the door, it's really just an incredible technological dance, if you will.
All right. Well, so with that, maybe we can jump then over to Ray Dugan. So he's with Ingredion, which is one of the leading global producers of ingredients for the food, beverage, brewing, and pharmaceutical industries. So Ray, I'll let you take it away. Oh, you're still on mute. Can we unmute Ray?
Yep, I apologize. Thank you, Representative. I appreciate you having me. Like you mentioned, my name is Ray Dugan. I'm the plant manager for Ingredion's largest plant, located in Bedford Park, Illinois. I've been with the company for about 24 years in various locations and assignments, but primarily here at what we call the Argo plant. Ingredion is a global ingredient solution company. We turn corn, tapioca, wheat, potatoes, and other raw materials into a variety of innovative ingredient solutions for the food, beverage, brewing, and pharmaceutical industries, as well as for industrial sectors. With more than 11,000 employees around the world, we operate over 40 manufacturing facilities in 14 countries, with sales offices in 29 countries. As a result, we service over 18,000 customers across 120 countries. Jim Zally, our president and CEO, has relentlessly instilled 5 value systems across our company. First, care first. We actively work to safeguard and enable the well-being of our people, the quality of our products, and the reputation for trust and integrity. Second, be preferred. We earn the right to be customer preferred by delivering mutual enduring value to each touch point of the customer experience. Third, everyone belongs. We embrace diversity and proactively foster an inclusive work environment where each person is valued and feels inspired to contribute at their best. Fourth, we innovate boldly. We courageously strive for breakthrough innovations driven by our relentless curiosity, bold thinking, speed of decision-making, and agile execution. And finally, owner's mindset. We think and act like owners, where everyone takes personal responsibility to anticipate challenges, proactively search for opportunities, and make fact-based decisions that are in the best interest of the company. So as a result of all of these pillars, starting in 2009, Ingredion was named to Fortune magazine's list of the most admired companies and has been on that list ever since. We've also received additional notoriety, such as one of the world's most ethical companies since 2014 by the Ethisphere Institute, and listed on Bloomberg's Gender Equality Index since 2018. So in terms of operating in Illinois, we are grouped into 3 main segments. Our worldwide headquarters is located in Westchester, Illinois. We operate a small polyols manufacturing facility in Mapleton, Illinois. And as I mentioned prior, our largest facility, Argo, which is where I'm broadcasting from now, is in Bedford Park, Illinois. Between the 3 plants, we employ over 900 Ingredion workers, but hundreds more are employed as full-time contractors in support of the plants. Here at Ingredion, or in Bedford Park, we broke ground in 1906 and started production of this facility in 1908. Here at this facility, we employ over 600 employees and contractors, and our associates are represented by the United Steelworkers Local 507. This plant, Argo, produces sweeteners, starches, corn oil, and feed products for the animal nutrition industry. This plant operates 24 hours per day, 7 days per week, 365 days per year, with limited shutdowns for planned maintenance. As we are conveniently located in the Corn Belt, with Illinois being the #2 corn producer in the United States, our supply is almost exclusively local to the Midwest, with most of our deliveries by rail, but a large portion of them by truck as well. This facility alone grinds almost 80 million bushels per year and consumes approximately 5% of our state's corn production. We spent over $80 million in corn purchases from local farmers last year. I'm very proud to work and support the farming community in the state of Illinois. Ingredion is considered an essential business by the U.S. government, and we continue to operate this facility, helping to maintain our nation's food supply throughout this pandemic. We put the safety of our employees first and foremost. I am extremely proud of our frontline workers who have worked around the clock to ensure business continuity, which have kept our grocery shelves stocked. So as a segue into the manufacturing benefits, or the benefits of manufacturing in Illinois, I'm probably going to echo a lot of the things that Donovan already mentioned, but I'll just touch on them again. One of them is just the relationship with our local community, Bedford Park. We do a lot of outreach programs, and plant personnel volunteer frequently within the community, so we have an excellent relationship within Bedford Park and Mayor David Brady. Like Donovan mentioned, Chicago is the hub of the Midwest and provides superior transportation and logistical benefits. We have several intricate highway systems which provide access from all directions to and from our plant. In addition, we have the benefit of being serviced by 3 separate railways: the Canadian National, the Indiana Harbor Belt, and the Belt Railway Company of Chicago. This is essential for a business like ours, which moves millions of pounds of product per day, both on the supply and finished goods side. Also, like Donovan mentioned, utilities are robust with good electrical and natural gas supply infrastructure. Northern Illinois is well connected to interstate natural gas pipelines, so gas supply and distribution is competitive compared to other regions. Additionally, NICOR has ample natural gas storage, which supports market competitiveness and business continuity. And for a plant like ours, we use a lot of gas, so it's very important. We also benefit from deregulated electricity market, which gives Northern Illinois manufacturers a competitive edge. On the water side, we have plenty of supply as we pull from the adjacent Chicago sanitary and shipping canal, as well as pulling from a healthy aquifer and city water supply. There was a lot of talk about labor. Skilled labor is relatively good, even with a higher cost of living. I think like most companies, we have challenges, and this fluctuates with the economy. But many applicants convey their desire to live on or near around Chicago, especially relative to our competitors who are in more reclusive places. We provide an extensive training program for all of our employees and have internships and co-ops for all college level students. In terms of environmental, we have a really good relationship with the Environmental Protection Agency, or the IEPA. It is responsive to new permit requests and issues them in a timely manner. Their staff is pretty professional and easy to work with, and we've really had a good long-term relationship with them. Argo, this plant, is also located within the enterprise zone of the state of Illinois, so we obviously benefit from the sales exemptions of building materials and authorized building projects, those things like HVAC, plumbing, and just general supplies, but also manufacturing machinery and equipment. So that's just kind of, there's a lot of benefits to manufacturing in Illinois. So those are kind of some of the highlights for us, but there's many more. Some of the manufacturing challenges, again, as already mentioned, the transportation infrastructure is what we feel in decline, in need of some upgrades or repairs. Our supply chain, our customers often report delays due to congestion related to rail and road issues. Property taxes, obviously Chicago's near the top of the nation in industrial property tax rates. So whenever we look at doing an additional project or consideration of a growth project in Illinois, this is always at the forefront. The Chicago metropolitan air quality area is being reclassified as a serious non-attainment of ozone. So this means that any threshold for NOx or VOM will be lowered, making future air permitting more difficult. This has the potential to impact growth in the future as well. And then, as mentioned prior, NICOR is proposing changes to how natural gas storage allocations are being managed, and that's ICC docket 200606. These changes could place severe restrictions on storage use, which if enacted would dramatically increase costs for large industrial users like us. And I believe the ICC is scheduled to rule on that in mid-2021, and then potential tariffs to be going into place in mid-2022 if approved. And then on the electrical side, recent rate cases have increased utility costs of electricity transmission, distribution, ancillaries for industrial users like us, and are negating or potentially negating decreases in power generation costs. So further changes in rate structures are likely as regulators navigate political issues, potential closures of nuclear facilities, and things like that. So, these things aren't exactly happening at the moment, but we look at the political environment and the internal environments, and we see a potential risk of those costs increasing going forward. So with that, I think I've said a lot, and I think I've probably gone over my time. But again, if you have any questions or any additional things you want to know, please ask. And thank you again for the opportunity to do this.
Thank you. So my first question for you, Ray, is I have a big canister of Argo cornstarch in my pantry. I am assuming that came from somewhere on Archer Avenue.
That's correct.
One of the things that I think on the energy side of things, people don't necessarily realize how critical having not only an inexpensive source of energy is, but also that it be a very constant, dependable, reliable source of energy. We've seen that on everything relating to, on the agriculture side, on the manufacturing side, and even, on transportation issues and everything else. So the other thing that I don't think people, the average person realizes either is that Exelon's nuclear facility is responsible for roughly 80% of the electricity generation in the Chicagoland area. So if that goes offline, that's obviously, going to be disruptive for energy supplies here. So, Ray, if you could, talk a little bit about, you mentioned like electricity usage, natural gas. I mean, how critical is that nuclear plant, and the electricity that it throws off to your company's ability to function?
Yeah, so we're obviously a large consumer of utilities and water. On the gas side, we run boilers and gas boilers. Those provide steam to our process, but also generate electricity internally. So definitely one of the, I think, the largest gas users in Illinois. So, and we generate our own electricity, but we also buy electricity, a lot of electricity off the grid. So both are critical to our business, and any, risk of future price increases is going to, directly impact our bottom line. So it's very near and dear to us.
Got it.
I'll just add too, across the board, that Jim and I, we travel, we visit manufacturers across the state all the time, and the two biggest costs for pretty much all manufacturing are number one, usually personnel, and then two, energy. So energy cost is crucial to manufacturing across the board.
Right. Now, Ray, one of the other things that you mentioned as well has to do with the property tax issue. And I think that, property taxes, we've certainly seen when it comes to the southern, side of Cook County, the loss of manufacturing in those neighborhoods has been absolutely devastating. And, and it leads to everything else, right? A big manufacturer leaves. There's less work opportunity. There's fewer work opportunities. Your property tax will in fact go up if you're in residential, because now you've lost a huge, tax-based net contributor as opposed to net user. What are you kind of seeing as some of the trends for manufacturers when it comes to the impact of property taxes constantly going up and up and up, particularly within Cook County?
Yeah, we don't speak to other manufacturers, competitors directly very much. I can kind of only speak for us, and we've been here for 110 years, so I don't think we're going anywhere. But it is challenging. I mean, these are direct costs to our bottom line, and where I think it hurts is when we think about expansion or co-producing with a customer that may want to come locally to Illinois. It becomes a real challenge as these taxes stay relatively high, and the risk of them going higher.
All right, so anyone in my district, 47th district, Elmhurst, Clarendon Hills, Hinsdale, Westmont, we are constantly seeing the railway traffic that is coming to and fro. When it comes to, you mentioned that one of the things that you're facing as well has to do with railroad congestion. Can you expand on that just a little bit?
Yeah, so, internally we have a pretty significant rail system, but we're supplied just constantly with corn, large unit trains of corn, but also we move in empties to take out our product as well. And so it's really, we're not a just-in-time business, but our supplies need to be relatively consistent. So whenever we have these delays due to rail issues, and they're all external, so we don't know exactly what the issues are, but what we do see is they're consistent. So when we get a consistent delay of either empties coming back to us or corn supply, it affects our business and the way we operate.
Roughly how many train cars go, your typical, 1 unit of train, roughly how many cars go in and out of the Argo facility each day?
Yeah, so it changes. We can hold roughly, just under 1,000 cars here at the site. So you can imagine, the need for quick, efficient movements of rail in and out of this facility.
Got it. All right, thanks, Ray. We'll have some more questions, but I do want to get to Danielle so she can tell us about Project Higher Ed and how it's here to help both students and manufacturers.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Representative Mazzochi. I have to start by saying I appreciate your foresight in recognizing the need to help bridge that gap in workforce and education. And that really was the impetus to, get Project Higher Ed going. And for me, that's provided me a wonderful opportunity to be involved with this project and this program for the college. So Project Higher Ed is really kind of the connection between workforce and the college, and making sure that we're able to address that gap. And I think we're going to pull up a slideshow that demonstrates a little bit more about what we're doing around apprenticeships, specifically in manufacturing. You know, we really want to be that bridge and to help employers find the right talent for their organization. I do have a video, and that's on our next slide. So I'm hoping we'll be able to pull that up and to watch that video. It's just a quick 2-minute overview that helps to show a little bit of what Project Higher Ed has done over the last 1.5 years since really we've been hitting the ground with our apprenticeships and what that looks like. So I'll go ahead and see if we can get that video going.
Project Higher Ed is a workforce development initiative whereby we expand our partnerships with employers in the community to help them try to address the challenges they've had in finding talent, basically, with the skills that they need for their various jobs. At the same time, helping our students connect with these employers, learn the skills they need, and land jobs, bottom line. The 7 tracks or jobs are manufacturing machining, manufacturing CNC operator, facility maintenance, industrial maintenance, HVACR service, welding, and electromechanical or mechatronics.
Project Higher Ed has been definitely a huge boost for SWD. It's allowed us to connect with our community as well as the college to offer, our community members, new students, job opportunities. For us here at SWD, it's tapping into that good talent that we may miss. And it's also offering those development opportunities for everyone.
This offers a package that makes it easier for companies to adapt, to bring them on board, to fully embrace the idea of an apprenticeship model. So it takes a lot of, and as someone who knows what it's like to build this from scratch, this takes out about 90% of that busy work and allows you to just say, all right, this is what we need, and kind of Project Higher Ed is providing for it. So it's great in that regard.
I would definitely recommend this program. I've been to the traditional college route, and what this program offers is no debt. You get paid to go to class, and the exposure that you get from so many hours of training, both inside and outside the classroom, are fantastic.
For being the first time for not only my employer, Mauser, but at the same time, it's a new program at the College of DuPage. It's been fantastic. It's been almost seamless. I've had no issues. Anytime I have a question, people follow up with me at the school and with work. I cannot recommend it anymore.
We started off really talking to employers and seeing what are their workforce needs. As I've heard already, we've talked about, as Jim mentioned, how much workforce and that work-based learning is such a need right now in the manufacturing area. So we started our apprenticeship program in manufacturing. Here we've got a number of benefits to our employers, and these are things that we draw from Apprenticeship Illinois and from the Department of Labor, who are all wonderful advocates and supporters of apprenticeship programs. But we also talk to our current employers who are working with our apprentices, and they have talked about how valuable this is. So building a pipeline of skilled workers, that really helps address how we've got a number of our baby boomers retiring. And so how do we retain that institutional knowledge that they have? How do you help, or how do you replace somebody? Well, create somebody who can learn from them. So get an apprentice in the door who's able to learn from that person who's getting close to retiring, have them start to learn and gain some of those skills and knowledge that they can then pass on to that apprentice. It also allows for customizing skills. So we know that each employer has different skills that they need. Each manufacturer is really looking for something specific for their facility. And so we at College of DuPage recognize that and have allowed for our apprenticeship program to be customizable. So we have, great example, we have somebody who is facility maintenance, who's working as an apprentice in facility maintenance at a manufacturer in our district. And they had talked to us and said, hey, we really want this student to have some experience around welding. Let's put that into their program. And so we've been able to meet that need specific to that employer. It's also flexible scheduling. So we're talking about 3 different terms a year, morning, afternoon, and evening classes, but it also allows for people who might say a 16-week course might work better, a 12-week, a 10-week course. There's a lot of flexibility. In the COVID environment we're in, there's lots of hybrid courses, lots of remote learning with labs still taking place on campus. So it's really a flexible environment for employers and for the apprentices. It helps to boost retention. So, you know, we're seeing that for employees to see employers investing in them, they then stay on and not only stay for the 2-year commitment post completing their apprenticeship program, but they're also staying longer than those 2 years. So, you know, employers, manufacturers aren't having to continually invest money into the hiring of new folks. They're getting that retention. Saving on wages, the idea with that apprenticeship model is that they're going to hire somebody in it to work there, but that they're going to be giving incremental wage increases over time. For the positive return on investment, we know that for every $1 that a manufacturer or an employer invests into an apprenticeship program, they're getting a $1.40 return on interest on that. And that's because of not only the benefits to them, but also some of the benefits and the structures in place that help support those apprenticeship programs. So there's grant funds in DuPage County. We have things like WorkNet DuPage that we work with closely to be able to support our employers, and for our employers, when they go through that grant process, that means they're getting reimbursed for any expenses they're putting toward the cost of tuition, books, and fees for their apprentices. And then also we all have a tax credit for employers who hire apprentices, and so that's a great opportunity for our manufacturers to be able to take advantage of and make an apprenticeship really a feasible option for them in their budgets. On the next slide, you'll see some benefits for apprentices. And so if we can go to the next slide, you'll be able to see what it looks like for those who think apprenticeship might be for me, or I want to learn more about it. You know, apprentices earn a paycheck and benefits from day one. So, you know, they're a full-time employee of the manufacturer and then are taking time you know, during the day or in the evenings to be able to take their coursework. So while at the same time they are a full-time employee, they are also a student. And really, it's that idea that they're gaining practical skills and relevant training. So they might be in the classroom getting to learn about CNC machining. They're playing around in our labs. They're breaking the equipment on our labs, learning how to fix it there. And then they get to go to their employer that day, apply what they've learned, you know, then they're also getting that mentorship from somebody who's been working at that plant or on that equipment for however many years that they've been there. So it's really integrating that learning, you know, really focused on that work-based learning that they're doing. Zero jet upon graduation, that's a given. You know, for so many of our students, the idea of being able to afford higher education is really a challenge. And so really apprenticeships create a model in which, you know, our students are able to do that because the employer pays for the cost of the tuition and the books while the student is an apprentice with the employer. The student is earning college credit and an industry-aligned education. Not only at College of DuPage do we have our own like certificate programs. We recently went through the Illinois Community College Board, ICCB, to get a stackable credential within the manufacturing or applied technology field. So any student who completes our apprenticeship program is going to be getting a COD ICCB certificate. We're getting them set up as a registered apprentice, so they would get the DOL registered apprenticeship certificate, any industry credentials that they need. So really, you know, they're getting what they need through this program to be successful within this employment opportunity to work in the manufacturing sector. They're getting that mentoring and support from on-the-job training. They'll get those incremental wage increases and hopefully some career advancement opportunities with that employer and really a secure future. So for our apprenticeship program, we ask our students, it's typically 2 years in length, that our students at the completion of the program will stay on with that employer for a minimum of 2 years upon completion. And so for anyone, I think in this environment to hear, hey, this is an opportunity to, you know, stay with an employer for up to 4 years right off the bat. That's what we're looking for here, an investment from the apprentice and from the employer. I think that's wonderful news for many people today. If you want to go to the next slide, you can see the 7 jobs or tracks that we currently have apprentices or apprenticeship opportunities in. So we have on-the-job training modules that we provide to employers to help support them be able to provide that mentoring to their apprentice, and then our students are taking coursework within each one of these tracks. We've got industrial maintenance, facility maintenance, manufacturing CNC, manufacturing machining, welding, so a number of great opportunities. Most right now of who we're working with are manufacturers within our apprenticeship program. You want to go to the next slide? I think we've got a great testimonial here of one of our apprentices. Both Pioneer and COD work with me to ensure I have the tools that I need for success and the resources needed to advance in both my education and my skills in the field. And that's Hamid, one of our current CNC machinists, who's an apprentice, who's been very successful with his employer. And then the next slide shows Anissa, who's the president, CEO, and owner of that company, who said Hamid has exceeded our expectations, willing to learn and willing to get out of his comfort zone. He's one of our favorite employees, and we're honored to have selected him from your program. Thank you, COD. Really, we're just thrilled that we have such a great opportunity to help connect employers with apprentices. And on your next slide, I think you'll be able to see for anyone who's thinking about hosting an apprentice or somebody who might be interested in becoming an apprentice, they can contact us. We've got our website, our email address, we've got my phone number on there. And so you can always, go to College of DuPage's website, look up information, and you'll be able to watch that video that we didn't get to see at the beginning, but you'll also be able to contact us. We have both a student form and an employer form. You can just provide some information and somebody will follow up with you in the next business day. So, really excited about the opportunities we're providing to our students and our apprentices. And, for our employers, we continue to get more and more employers who are excited about the apprenticeship model and program. And so we've got a new group of students who are going to be ready to look for apprenticeship opportunities coming up here this fall. So we're certainly excited about bringing more and more people into the fold.
Fantastic. Danielle, all right, I might want to just ask a question and I'll hit mute. So, one thing that I'd be interested in getting, all of your thoughts on, maybe Ray, if we want to start with you, is, what is it that you're looking for in a skilled applicant when it comes to either their knowledge of machinery or their skill set, in a way that, is going to help the company going forward in the future?
Yeah, obviously we hire a pretty diverse group from our associates who become operators on the front line to engineers. So just in talking to our associates, definitely, the prior experience is definitely a plus. For us, they have to go and pass a test, a skills test. So it's important that they have basic, basic math skills, science skills, things like that. So, prior experience and some basic knowledge or some basic skills are probably the biggest thing. But I also believe you learn a lot through an interview about a person's personality and willingness to work with people. So those are the things we're looking for.
So, Donovan or Jim, I don't know if you want to hop in on this, but, we've obviously seen that there's, at least at the federal level, an effort to try to pull manufacturing back into the United States from overseas, particularly when it comes to critical food supplies, medical supplies. How is Illinois doing on that score? Are we winning, losing, or are we seeing those jobs that are supposedly coming back getting rerouted to other states?
Donovan, you want to take it?
I think if you look at Illinois as a whole, what's happening with the states surrounding us is kind of the same on the world scale. Illinois is growing slower at jobs, bringing jobs into Illinois, whether they're from another country or they're from another state. We just tend to lag behind, especially around our surrounding states. So it's not just competition with other countries, it's competition right here in the United States. And unfortunately, while we are seeing growth, it's at a much slower rate. I don't have statistics on the number of companies that have come into Illinois from another country, but I just know as a whole, we certainly have the potential to do better, and I hope that we can do better.
Yeah, and I mean, and to me, if we really want to have a very strong, middle class tax base, right, we need to have more manufacturing jobs in Illinois. So, what are some of the things that Illinois, it could do? I know you mentioned just our political climate is awful and making sure we've got good energy supplies, but, are there some particular concrete steps that, you know, you've heard from some of your members where it's, you know, where it's like, if only Illinois would do this, I would feel so much more confident about being here, or expanding here.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of retouching on some of the issues I touched on, what manufacturers are looking for more than anything is, again, predictability, reliability, to be able to know what their outlook is going to look like in the next year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. That way they can know whether or not they can grow here in the state, or if there's going to be some disadvantages to doing that other than moving. And part of that is, again, not to not mention the same things I've already brought up, but we need to ensure that we have our state in order, so that if I'm a business and I'm looking at the state of Illinois that's centrally located, has a great workforce, has everything I'm looking for, but there's another state that does that, but has a lower tax base, has lower property taxes, has tackled the issues such as pensions, and doesn't have this big looming pension costs over their head, where they might have, where you're unsure whether they're going to turn to me as an employer to help find funds to take care of some of those issues. That's really, I think, one of the largest things that companies are going to look at. So yeah, we really need to make sure that we're reliable as a state, and that is tackling a lot of the issues that we hear about every day: property taxes, budget, workers' comp, unemployment insurance, things like that.
Yeah. You know, now one of the things that we have it that we're currently discussing in Illinois, obviously, is the graduated income tax. And you mentioned that this was going to hit small manufacturers particularly hard. I was wondering if you could expand on that.
Sure, and Jim, if you want to jump in too, please feel free. But a lot of the smaller manufacturers, smaller businesses, the owners of those businesses will actually run their business taxes through their own personal income tax. And so if I'm filing my taxes, I could see a large increase in myself, and really it's my business. And that might get me to want to look at other places to run my business. When they're talking about just taxing a certain level of folks, you're going to see a lot of those folks might be some of the leading employers in the state of Illinois, and that could really encourage them to look at other states when looking to for the future of their business.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. Go, sorry, Jim, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think Don hit it on the head. This really goes to this predictability and consistency element, that we budget what their tax and costs are going to be year over year. So much the better in terms of what they can expect to some of the costs that they can control through their own budgeting. When you have a graduated income tax, which may fall to the whim of any given year of what the state figures it's going to need for the following year, that predictability is really undermined, and it really goes to causing problems foundationally for those businesses. If you're an S corporation where you are running your tax liabilities through your own personal accounts, it doesn't take much to trip over that $250,000 floor that the proponents of the graduated tax have made. And if you have a good year, well, then your liability is going to increase that much more. And again, it introduces uncertainty.
Yeah, and to build on that uncertainty too, we just had to borrow $5 billion to make our budget whole for the year. The governor himself, I think, has predicted that his graduated income tax would bring in $3 billion. It doesn't fill the hole, and then where are they going to go for the rest of that income? I think that's again something a lot of people, a lot of job creators are keeping an eye on.
Yeah, and I'm not too optimistic with the governor's projections on $3 billion, because my concern is, and we're already seeing it in DuPage County, is that one of the largest areas of out migration is to the great state of Florida. So, what does Florida have in common that Illinois doesn't? Yeah, they've got better weather, but they also have a zero personal income tax. So that's obviously a thing. Donovan and Jim, you guys mentioned the predictability of the tax issues. That obviously is one of the huge complaints we hear about property taxes, is nobody knows what the property tax is going to be from year to year to be able to plan for that. Although at least in theory, there's some hypothetical limits on your levies. But when it comes to the income tax, I have told people that one of the benefits of the flat tax, for me at least as a legislator, is I usually don't get lobbied on tax exemptions, and can this person in this bracket have this particular rate, and should this person in that bracket have that rate, which you certainly see all the time at the federal level. So I've actually been terrified at the notion of this going through, in the sense of now everybody is going to be trying to say, but I should get an exemption because of this, and I should get an exemption because of that. And it's going to make a mess of the process down in Springfield, even more than what we've already had.
Well, and the other thing it doesn't change the levy. The levy is going to stay the same. It's just shifting taxes to other taxpayers. So we have to keep that in mind, as Ray had pointed out earlier, when a business leaves a community, the taxes that business would have been responsible for paying into the system get spread among everybody else. So
right. The burden remains the same. Who carries it always goes up.
Exactly.
Yeah. Ray, getting back to, how do you think that the Illinois tax structure, if we were to go to a graduated income tax, has anyone done any assessment that you can share on the impact that would have on your company, on your workforce?
At this point, I really can't. At a plant level, we haven't modeled it yet, but I believe at a corporate level, we're looking at it. But yeah, at this point, it's hard to say right now.
Okay. Danielle, I don't want to keep you out of the discussion. When it comes to the types of skills that students are developing during their apprenticeships, one of the things that we heard about, right, is that there's a difference between this is what the employer wants and this is what they're being taught in schools. So, and there's a big mismatch between that, which of course is exactly why we wanted to have Project Higher Ed. What is Project Higher Ed doing to try to make sure that you're actually using the skill sets needed by employers to direct the educational program, as opposed to how it has been historically, which is the other way around, which is why we have so many students who get degrees, but then they can't find any meaningful jobs.
Yeah, we work very closely with our employers, and we make sure that when we're sitting down with them to identify what they're looking for, we involve faculty in that conversation. So, the folks who are helping lead the conversation in the classroom are connecting with the employers that we work with to make sure that they're really listening and hearing what the employer needs, and that when it comes to, getting them in the right courses and getting them the right skill sets, that we're matching them up in the right way, so that they're really getting, exactly what they want out of that. And sometimes that's getting them to the right section of a course, or making sure that some of what they're presenting has good specific examples that apply for them. I do have to say, I think our tech area, our applied technology manufacturing faculty have done a really good job of maintaining a real kind of pulse of what's going on with the manufacturers. But I really appreciate, from where we're at, we get to have that conversation between the employer, the faculty member. The apprentice is always involved in that, so they're having a conversation. They're really helping to kind of lead conversations between the faculty and their employer about what it is that they're looking for, or what maybe some of their skills are that they need to further develop. So it's really great that it's been such an open communication between all the parties.
This is what makes the apprenticeship really valuable, is that blending of the on-the-job training that aligned to related technical instruction that's delivered most often by programs like those at College at DuPage. So the biggest challenge of a lot of apprenticeship programs is that company training plan that gets laid out first, and then the community college marries up to that training plan with its courses. And as Danielle had pointed out, getting that apprentice the right information at the right time, so that we're never asking that apprentice to do something that they haven't already learned about.
So one philosophical question I'll leave everyone with, and then I'll wrap up is, now that we've had some experience with life in the time of COVID, um, what do you think that's going to do to students who, they thought they were going to go get a 4-year degree and, oh, it was going to be absolutely fantastic. And they're, sitting at home in their parents' house doing it all online. Do you think that that's going to make it easier for you to potentially recruit people into the manufacturing sector, or not so much, or is it just going to be a wash?
I think it's going to be a mixed bag. I really think it's going to come down to what the particular occupations are. And again, this is where apprenticeship, I think, has an advantage over the traditional pathway or programs of study, is that you do have this mix where, for instance, at Ingredion, and some of the apprenticeship programs I work with, most notably the ICAP program, we sat down with all of the employers and all of the colleges and said, okay, what are the laboratory courses that are applied to this particular apprenticeship that could be transitioned over to being made part now of the on-the-job learning plan, so that if the community college is 80%, 90% online remote learning, that the hands-on component can be shifted over to the company without detriment to the apprentice. So that's been worked on in a couple of places, but certainly COVID has changed the way that's being delivered. And I think it's going to be a slow return to normal at the university level. I mean, even now, kids are on campus, but they're in their rooms for the most part.
All right. Well, Ray, I'll give you, since you are our special manufacturing guest here, I'm happy to give you the next word in the sense of, what would you like to see for Illinois going forward and in the future, so that you guys can continue to, manufacture and create and continue jobs here in the state of Illinois?
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo Donovan's sentiments that, we're a long-standing manufacturer in Illinois. We don't plan on going anywhere, but as manufacturers, we don't like surprises, and we like stability. And that's, across our energy and our labor and our taxes and things like that. So for us, I think it's just the stability of what's coming, or what we have that's really important to us.
All right. Well, I want to say again, I want to thank everyone for being here today for this manufacturing roundtable. Again, happy Manufacturing Day to everybody if you're watching this on October 2nd. And one of the things that I do want to make sure as well for anyone watching, if you are interested in Project Higher Ed, you can reach out by email to project-hire, HIRE-ed@cod.edu. We're also joined again today by the Illinois Manufacturing Association and Ray Dugan from Ingredion. Fantastic work that's being done here in the state of Illinois to try to keep our economy going and growing. And I do want to say again, thank you everyone so much for being here and for your time.
And thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Happy